will be negotiated. India is a hard bargainer, there's no doubt about it. Abhijit will vie for that. And at the end of the day, we are going to get as much out of Russia as Russia is getting out of us, Trump or no Trump.
Tatiana Kukreva is also joining us. Again, you know, the challenge before both leaders is, and this has been sort of some amount of historic baggage as well, it was essentially a defense relationship. Now it's become a defense and energy relationship. But you've got to move beyond that. You've got to talk about pharmaceuticals. You've got to talk about, I mean, I put out this data point yesterday. There are 70,000 Indians working in Russia right now. There are 5 million Indian Americans. I mean, you have to have a much more broader base for this relationship if we have to take it to the next level. And that's something that they will be talking about through the delegation talks today, through the business forum today. What has been the challenge? Why hasn't it been actualized yet?
Well, look, Zaka, if we talk about, for instance, specifically Indian Americans, and we do understand that a lot of Indians come to study in the US, right?
Yeah.
That comes down to a very simple fact in India's past, the fact that people actually speak English. They didn't at least learn Russian as their second native language, basically. So it is a challenge in a way. However, like, let me tell you, there are so many programs being opened right now, and there are so many opportunities. And I believe that, you know, we've actually seen it on the ground. There are more people coming from India. There's definitely more tourism, at least in the, you know, in the capital, in St. Petersburg. We see those tourists. And you know, from what I've at least gauged in the streets, they actually love it here. So the challenge with overcoming this idea that people here, you know, you can't study in English. You actually can. We even have programs that where you can study in English, again, in the capital and not just in the capital.
Are you also, sorry, I'm interrupting. Are you also hearing about this agreement that they will sign possibly for visa-free or visa on arrival entry for Indian tourists coming into Russia?
Yes, well, look, before it's signed, obviously, these are reports that would facilitate the situation much better. There's also, you know, there's many programs that are being worked over within the Ministry of Tourism domestically to help foreign tourists, because obviously we understand the shortcomings, you know, when it comes to the difficulties with the foreign bank cards and everything that comes with it. That I mean, as a Russian person, you know, we faced these ourselves when we travel. We also are faced with the same problem. You know, we have to come in with cash, or get creative, which is, you know, with our history, this is massively what Russians have done throughout the years. So there are a lot of things in the works.
The Rupee Mir sort of exchange agreement is again something, one of the 10 that they're talking about. Yes, it is a problem. I mean, when most of your entities, your banks have basically been sanctioned out of the international financial system, then it is going to have an impact on daily life. It is going to have an impact on tourism, etc. But I want to bring it back to the defense conversation. And General, you wanted to make a point about why we should go for the Russian weapon systems more than the Americans. I mean, I do concede, yes, the GE Tejas business has been a real letdown. The fact that there hasn't been technology transfer, even after the two heads of government agreed to it explicitly and signed an agreement 3 years ago almost, it still hasn't happened. And frankly, I don't see it happening anytime soon.
Yeah, so I wanted to actually make a couple of points here. One is about, I must say that there are more Russians in India than more Indians in Russia. I think maybe it's because of the weather and the comfort the Russians find in India when they come as tourists. That is one part. But I just want to make a quick point what Dr. Anand was saying, that who's going to sanction the Americans and the Europeans? Because I want to highlight 2 points. Even Germany and UK continue to pump oil or energy from Russia today. Who's sanctioning them? I'm not talking of China. But I'm talking to those people who are trying to educate us that you switch off the energy pipeline with the Russians. The second is who's going to sanction Americans because they continue to buy the nuclear fuel, which is supposed for this thing, which Putin said.
Yeah.
The moment he was about to take off, he says that if America can buy nuclear fuel from us, why not India? So who's going to be sanctioning Americans? Who is going to put the tariff? The third point which I want to make out is that for nearly 3.5 or rather nearly 4 years, the Europeans have been pumping out energy from the gas from Russians so that they could diversify over a period of time. And they've been pumping hard. Actually, virtually everything which they have been pumping out has been fueling into the war economy.
Yeah.
So, who's going to be sanctioning and who's going to put them to task in tomorrow when everything has to going to be reconciled? So, while you are getting after India, which possibly is the only one you can get after today to try and educate and try and tell us what to do this thing, which we are of course not doing. But who is going to take this battle back to these people who have been trying to sanction? But
so I guess one of the things you do is you're showing the Americans and the Europeans that India has options. I mean, through this visit. But beyond that, I mean, let's be realistic about what we can expect today and the future trajectory of this relationship. Abhijit.
Look, can I just get back to the GE engine for
Oh
a
yeah,
minute?
sure.
Look, I think we need to set things straight out here. GE had told us 6-7 years back what the delivery schedule was going to be. They've stuck to the delivery schedule. If you read what Angad Singh has been writing, the schedule had been very clear. 1 engine in the first year, 2 engines in the second year, and then 5 engines per year. I don't know where this thing has come out. I know there have been sources that keep putting out, informed sources that keep putting out the engine delivery is delayed. HAL already has 1 engine. Why haven't they handed over that LCA Tejas to the Air Force? There's something else happening out here. GE has been they've been sticking to the delivery schedule as far as we understand it. Also the tech transfer, if you read the document, it says intend to transfer technology based on India's preparedness. We've received a very deep briefing on this from the Americans on all the things they had expected from India, especially in terms of operational security, which India has not even gotten back to them, not even in a documentary fashion, even on implementing it down the line. I'm not going to blame America for things that they have not done. Let's blame America for things that they have done. The first thing is the hypocrisy. Imagine they're censuring us for buying oil, but you're buying uranium.
Yeah.
And when the Trump summit happened, it was the uranium purchase that had gone through the roof in terms of their own energy security. Now, let's assume that Trump has always been a commodities man. He's always been about, this sort of 19th century, early 20th century things that America should go control resources, be it Greenland, be it Canada merging into the United States of America, so on and so forth. I don't know why you'd want to do that, because Canada is a left-wing country and that's the last election the Republicans would ever win. This is something which I think we need to have done at we've actually handled it better than say the Europeans have. The Europeans have just caved in, gone groveling with, hat in hand and things like that. Tell me, if they have so much better diplomats, if Japan has better diplomats than us, how is it that everybody got sanctioned? How is it everybody got tariffed? The Swiss are trying so hard. I mean, come along, the Swiss. They're so inoffensive. I don't think anybody has ever had issues with Swiss chocolates or holes in their cheese. But they still got tariffs slapped down on them. The bigger picture is the relationship is going nowhere. These are talking points that we're talking about. Are tariffs causing problems? But remember, India-America trade actually went up post-tariff. It did not come down. Sure, some sectors are hit. Coimbatore, especially Tirupur, the textile sector is hit very badly. I know personally some 10-12 factories that have shut down. Look, when we're talking about bigger picture, we can't get into the minutiae bogging the entire picture down. There will be ups and downs. Remember, with the last government, you had huge issues with them funding NGOs which were running certain narratives in India and things like that. It was a much bigger security and foreign policy threat to India.
You think that was a bigger problem than the tariff?
Much bigger, much bigger. See, the hidden enemy, a person who's going to quietly get behind me and stab something in my back
is
much worse than, two boys at a bar essentially fighting it out.
It's a little more than boys in a bar. It's more like a guy who's going around and saying, I brought peace between India and Pakistan. But anyway, be that aside. See, look, it's a very simple thing. The only country, in my view, and this is really the elephant in the room, no one's talking about China. Trump wants to cut a deal with China. He's literally bending over backwards to cut a deal with Xi Jinping. Even the other day when that phone call happened, why? He got the Japanese Prime Minister to back off. Why is Trump interested? If tomorrow China were to attack Taiwan, can anybody here on this table or anyone who's joining us via satellite guarantee that the Americans will get involved? I don't think so. Trump is basically telling Xi Jinping it's for yours for the taking.
And all it's taken is 15 years for China to reach the place where it has. It just tells you the strength if you want, to dream where your country should. Of course, China is a different kettle of fish. But,
what about us?
Yes, we've been, as far as, again, a layman, geopolitics is concerned, Zaka, we've been pretty adept at walking on eggshells. But we've at least made Trump walk on razor blades. And I'll tell you why. Not many people realize this. We've bought almost 2 billion barrels of Russian oil since the war began.
Yeah.
And you know how we paid through it? 35% through rupee and almost the rest through dirhams. Now, UAE has benefited from it. Trump, this is another point of discontentment as far as Trump is concerned, that we aren't paying in dollars. So, it's not just one aspect that we continue to defy the West because we expose their hypocrisy in buying Russian energy, is that how we are facilitating both words are working in this direction. I think we need to go forward with resoluteness as far as our relation with Russia is concerned, not decrease. But I don't know how we are going to democratically get around the sanctions that he's imposed on. He's not going to give us the exemptions that UK and Germany have got as far as the sanctions on Russian oil majors is concerned. If he does, he's going to, that's another bargain chip for Trump. But I suppose Mr. Piyush Goyal is on it.
No, the question is, and I'll ask Lieutenant Davis also this. I mean, Trump has deferred the tariffs on China. He's reduced, I think, the fentanyl tariffs by 10%. He's basically said, I'm going to Beijing in April. He's probably going to make a grand announcement of a grand bargain cut with China. And I keep coming back to that Taiwan question, because if Vladimir Putin has done what he has done in Ukraine over the last 3 years, and he's winning, let's be very clear about it. He's winning on the battlefield. What is to stop Xi Jinping from thinking that, look, this is my window of opportunity. I have this president for the next 3 years. I don't know who the next American president is going to be. I don't know how he's going to react if I attack Taiwan. He's going to take it. He's going to take that gamble, and maybe he'll win.
Well, see, my view is that if China makes that move, it's going to be because they calculate that the conditions on the ground in the Pacific, in the Indo-Pacific, and with Taiwan, that somehow that's going to be a benefit and they're going to succeed. I don't think it's going to be dependent on what does or doesn't happen in the Russia-Ukraine war, because those are radically different situations, strategically, tactically, operational, any way you want to look at it. And I don't think that the interest of the United States over there is equal to the interest of the United States over here. So I think I would be very careful in drawing too close analogies. But look, when we're talking about the issue of China and Taiwan and what the U.S. can and can't do, I have done a number of analysis on this, and there is no chance that the U.S. could fight China over Taiwan and win. And I think that President Trump knows that. I think President Xi Jinping knows that. And I think it's also true that Xi Jinping does not want to go to war with Taiwan. I think that he would only do it if he felt like they were literally going to go to independence. I don't think that if he saw a moment of vulnerability that he would say, now's my chance, because that would imply that they want to. And I don't think they do want to. I think they would like the status quo as long as it doesn't go independence. But there is a red line, and if it's crossed either by the United States or by Taiwan, I do think they would go. So I don't think it's a non-issue. I just don't think that there's a correlation between what happens in Ukraine and Russia.
I think it's one of his stated policies, this whole business of reunification, and he's going to look at the best window. And I don't think, I disagree with you, Lieutenant Davis. I think the occupant of the White House, at whatever point that happens, is going to be an important factor.
Zaka, just to add there, you see, if
the only
Ukraine
thing I would say, though, is let me add one thing. It's not going to matter who's in the White House. It's going to matter what the military, and we don't have the capacity, regardless of whether it's Trump, Biden, or somebody else in the next term. I think that's important to understand.
Yeah, if Ukraine was in NATO, there's no way in hell that Russia would have attacked Ukraine. Let's get straight about that. America is still the most powerful country in the world. Now, as it happens, I really, I think I take your, what you've said very seriously, because in 1979, I think it was, that till 1979, USA had a NATO-like pact with Taiwan. But then it started its relationship with China, as we know, and that pact is no longer valid. So, I mean, this is a window that China sees as an opportunity to do what Russia has done. So I think there's nothing stopping it technically, except that Taiwan is much more adept at defending itself than, of course, Ukraine ever
I mean,
would be.
no two wars are comparable, but I'm just saying, if Abhijit, if that were to happen, I mean, obviously there's going to be down the line implications and consequences for us here in India. I mean, we've just had a standoff with the Chinese 5 years back. I don't think that's fully resolved or even fully resolvable, frankly.
True.
What happens to us?
Look, we will manage. I think,
as we do in life.
Look, we're a jugaad culture. Our entire culture is, things don't work.
Everything is an Indian wedding.
Nothing in India works. We manage, right? When we can't get used to the smoke, we claim that, bacon is smoked. It increases the life of the pork. Therefore, the Delhi smoke is good for us. We're like mature maple smoked bacon, right? This is what we do. If America goes from strength to strength, we'll make that work. If America crashes and burns, we'll make that work. If Russia, wins the Ukraine war, we'll make that work. If Ukraine wins the Ukraine war, we will make that work as well. We have survived for 5,000 years, Zaka. We have hardly changed anything in our culture, including, our sanitation habits or anything like that. Why do you think these small events, even nuclear war is a small event in our civilizational trajectory? We make it work.
General?
Yeah, okay. I'll 2-3 things. First is, I think when you use force, apply force, commit yourself to a war which is unrelenting, like in Ukraine, your power diminishes. America had to pull out from Afghanistan because of its expenditure which took place in terms of economy, in terms of military hardware, right? Look at two things which has happened. Russians...
Just give me 1 second. These are live shots coming in from the Rashtrapati Bhavan. So this is where the ceremonial welcome will happen. You can see External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar. You can see India's ambassador to Russia by his side there. Of course, there's a conversation going on between the two of them. At 11 a.m. is when the ceremonial welcome will happen for the Russian president. Yes, General, continue. So
the thing is that India, unlike Ukraine, India is not a proxy of the West against China or this thing. India is a power by itself. We have got a major geographical advantage, right? People don't understand, like I have wargamed this 1,000 times, right? The geographical advantage which we have against China will deter China to do something silly, right? Because it just can't manage for a long term to do this thing. So one is about the American power diminishing because of expenditure of the equipment, money, funds. Second is in case of Taiwan, which I will tend to agree with you. NATO, European Union, I think he talked of 4 blocks. They have got virtually no love lost for Taiwan. Americans may have certain degree of commitment towards Taiwan, but Europe doesn't have. Right, Europe has got more concerns about Russia, and therefore they will like to egg a war against this thing. But Taiwan is going to be sold out by the Europeans if something happens. And with the diminishing power which America is today, China is on ascent. The distance which is there from American heartland to Taiwan makes it difficult today. Right, I think it's a matter of concern, till the time Japanese truly start pitching in and the people in the region start pitching in.
I mean, you look at the kind of flack and the blowback that the Japanese Prime Minister got just for saying that if China were to militarily attack Taiwan, there will be a response from Japan. I mean, she's been shut down.
But look, I think the problem Sanai Chitakai faced was she said out in public what was accepted in private.
Yeah.
Right? Because I can tell you whatever the Americans...
all the time.
Yeah, I do. I can
nobody,
tell you...
nobody blows back on him.
I'm not a prime minister for good reason. Too much foot and mouth disease here. But look, the Japanese, I can tell you, and the Koreans are in absolutely no doubt in private that they will go and help Taiwan if necessary. They are, first of all, they're very confident that the Taiwanese can look after themselves. 100 kilometers of strait is not an easy logistical challenge to overcome. if you look at Japan, Japan's entire military posture now is moving towards it has always been sea denial, area denial. It is now moving towards long-range area and sea denial, especially sea denial. You look, they've got the biggest fleet of non-nuclear submarines, one of the biggest fleets of non-nuclear submarines around. What do you think is going to happen to all those Chinese invasion vessels while they're, trying to cross? Not easy. And the Japanese already have very well calibrated strategies. I suspect what America's plans have always been is that you first let Taiwan do its own thing, then Japan and Korea do, unrestricted submarine warfare, to take a World War II analogy. And then when required, America will come in. Remember, Taiwan is not Ukraine. Ukraine did not take its security seriously till 2014. Taiwan has always, Quemoy and Motsu have always, the two islands closest to China, have been under martial law for the longest time. They still have the draft out there, extremely well-trained troops, and they practice with virtually every NATO military that there is.
Okay.
They are nobody's fools.
Okay,
there is
quickly.
one distinct advantage, unfortunately, when you go into war, that China has. It's a dictatorship. It doesn't care how many of its own die in the trenches, millions. I mean, you had Mao, who's responsible for killing 63 million of his own people, 40 million in 4 years flat. But wars are strange things, strange beasts, if I may say. I mean, there was a time at the peak in Vietnam, US had deployed 3 million of its soldiers, and yet you remember what happened.
Yeah.
They had to run away. At the same time, in Germany, the US troops at its peak were about 5 million, not, of course, more than what in Vietnam were, and they won the war. So it's very difficult to say what will happen, except to say that China does not care about casualties because it's a dictatorship.
Okay, we'll take a quick break. I think the ceremony will begin in the next 10 to 15 minutes, but we'll be right back in just a couple of minutes, and we'll get you live pictures again from the Rashtrapati Bhavan, where there will be the ceremonial welcome for President Vladimir Putin of Russia.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
It is the all-important day of the 23rd Annual India-Russia Summit. Russian President Vladimir Putin is in India for a two-day visit, with Prime Minister Modi personally receiving him at the airport last night. It's a rare break in protocol. It's a signal of the warmth of ties between Moscow and Delhi. The leaders shared a handshake, a hug, and even rode together before a private dinner at the Prime Minister's residence, which lasted for more than 3 hours. Prime Minister Modi presented Mr. Putin with a Russian edition of the Bhagavad Gita, highlighting the shared cultural aspects between both countries and the inspiration that its teachings have to offer.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
It's the all-important day of the 23rd Annual India-Russia Summit. Russian President Vladimir Putin is in India for a two-day visit, with Prime Minister Modi personally receiving him at the airport last night. It's a rare break in protocol. It's a signal of the warmth of ties between Moscow and Delhi. The leaders shared a handshake, a hug, and even rode together before a private dinner at the Prime Minister's residence, which lasted for more than 3 hours. Prime Minister Modi presented Mr. Putin with a Russian edition of the Bhagavad Gita, highlighting the shared cultural aspects between both countries and the inspiration that its teachings have to offer. Welcome back. We've got some breaking news on some of the agreements that will be signed later today between India and Russia. Akanksha has more details on this. There's going to be media agreements. There's going to be agreements between business entities, banks, the biggest commercial lender in Russia with one of the big banks here in India. So we've got details of some of these agreements. These are going to be commercial agreements that are going to be signed. Akanksha has more details on this. Akanksha, walk us through what we can expect, these commercial, non-government to government agreements that will be announced today and signed.
Right, Zaka. Interesting you highlight that these are commercial, non-government to government. And very interesting because you see the whole gamut of areas that it's covering. Media, to say beverage companies, various other private sector entities as well. So to begin with, there's going to be a signing of agreement between news agency TASS and Press Trust of India. The other one is going to be an MOU on cooperation in the field of alcoholic beverage production between public joint stock company Abro Durso and Indo Spirit Beverages Private Limited. Signing of agreement between SB Bank and Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. There's going to be another agreement of intent for the implementation of an investment project for construction and active pharmaceutical ingredient production plant in Kaluga region, which is where India will be taking this forward. In fact, you will have Vikram Punia, president of Pharmacinzet, who's in fact going to be part of the Russian Federation now. There's also going to be a general cooperation agreement between Omega Elevators and SCAT-Tech. So you're looking at big tech machinery as well, which is part of the agreements. Memorandum of cooperation between the All Russian Public Organization Delovaya Rossiya, the All India Association of Industries, and the World Center in Mumbai. So this is how an entire gamut of MOUs now. Even Prasar Bharati and Gazprom Media Holding are going to be very actively part of this whole Ross Congress. There's an MOU enlisted over here with regards to that. Another MOU again involving the Gazprom Media Holding to be signed between NFDC and the Gazprom Media Holding as well. So two MOUs involving Gazprom. One even interestingly is going to be between TASS and Prasar Bharati. You also have Russian beverages, alcoholic beverage companies now coming to India. So this is the kind of diversification, Zaka, that the Commerce Minister Shri Piyush Goyal was highlighting yesterday when he was talking about how the bilateral trade has been up, but it needs diversification. It has been a bit lopsided, it has been a bit skewed, but when we are talking about how pivotal President Putin's state visit is, this is the kind of tectonic shift that we can look at, where India and Russia are making a big statement that they are not going to be trading against any particular country, but and that they are together and they are not in isolation. We are working towards an overall settlement which is also respecting the autonomy of both the countries and does not need a Western banking system in place as well.
Siddhant is also joining us. So I think both sides are stressing on the fact that, the commercial side of the relationship, the economic and trade side of the relationship is something that will get a big boost this time around. What had been a government to government sort of relationship will now have a much more trade, commerce, an economic side that will be revealed today, or at least the attempt is to elevate that side. Walk us through, Akanksha mentioned some of the deals that we can expect. Walk us through what the Indian side is stressing on as to how they, how they figure they're going to circumvent the financial impediments with the banking system, the credit guarantee system, and so on. Yeah.
Well, yes, that's right, Zaka. In fact, the Indian side's focus is also on economic cooperation, more trade, investments, exports to Russia. But Zaka, there has always been this issue after the war started in Ukraine. In fact, I remember my meeting with a Russian diplomat in New Delhi about a year back, and he explained to us the scenario at that time, that how Russia wants more and more big industry players in India to be investing in Russia. They are ready to give all kinds of subsidies and all kinds. They are ready to assess. But the whole problem here is that the Indian companies fear of getting sanctioned, because most of them have their offices in Europe, in United States. They do business there as well. So that has always been the concern with the major players in Indian markets in various fields. So how this particular concern will be addressed, because I was told that from last 2 days the business forums from both sides are meeting, the delegations are meeting, they are trying to plan, they are ready to, they are finding out solution for this. Also, Zaka,
all right.
yesterday...
Siddhant, just give me a moment. I want to get a quick word from the studio as well. In terms of working around the sanctions, the financial sanctions that have been imposed, you think all of these agreements eventually will come to fruition, because they have to find ways in which they don't get under the ambit of these Western sanctions?
I think they've all been planned very specifically in order to bypass those sanctions. Look, so far it hasn't come in the way at all. Like Anand said, we've used dirhams in the past. We're probably heading towards a rupee-ruble trade deal. I don't think India is too keen on that, though the Russians are keen, because right now the rupee is a much better reserve currency than the ruble is. But we're also heading most probably towards a gold reserve exchange. Remember, gold is, the price of gold has shot up very significantly. Given the kind of financial instability we're seeing. Today we're in the same position as we were in World War I, where Britain disconnected its currency from the gold standard, made Germany pay an indemnity, fought the war with funds borrowed from America, and then American bankers had to give Germany loans so that it could pay its war indemnity, so that Britain could pay back America, which ultimately led to the Great Depression. You're looking at something like that. If you look at the government, it's been urging everyone to move away from speculation and towards mutual funds. Yeah. It's been focusing on gold a lot, as in, they're almost short of telling you please go buy gold. They're doing everything to see to it you buy gold and invest in mutual funds. So clearly our financial planners have it right. They're looking at a long-term picture. We're most probably moving towards commodities because we're not as industrialized as, say, China. We can't do that much. But gold is something, India, the Indian housewife has 6 times the amount of gold that the US Reserve does. Yeah. Some insane figure like that. Yeah. This is fine. This is an Indian market. Even if we can't industrialize, we can absorb gold big time. Gold and diamonds, no problem.
I don't think we need a nudge really from the government for our folks to buy gold. But very quick closing comments before the ceremony begins.
I think what I'm looking at is beyond the geopolitical maneuverings, beyond the oil purchase, because that's the most obvious. We've had a very stable relationship with Soviet Union and Russia as far as science is concerned. I'd like a real leg up on that. I mean, space is one thing, but very recently, Mr. Putin announced this anti-cancer vaccine. The particulars aren't out yet, but I'm just thinking it's possibly to do with neoantigen, and it's a new. I think we really need to thrash our heads together and move that forward at another level completely, because America is actually now the next part of sanctions would come related to H1B. So I think that's the area I'm looking at.
Very quickly,
I think we need to keep on focusing on reducing the $60 billion worth of trade deficit. How is it going to manifest? I think that is very, very important. Otherwise, the value of rupee in Russia is going to be zilch, because you may pump as much. That is one part. And second is, I think the sector which is being sanctioned today is tariffed as energy sector. Right. As long as we are able to diversify into other domains, I don't think there's going to be a challenge even in long term. But I'm very quickly looking at possibly this winter resolving all issues.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see. Will it be the winter of discontent, or will it be the winter of change? We'll leave it at that. Thank you very much to all our guests as we count down to the ceremonial welcome that President Putin will be receiving in about less than 10 minutes' time. That's going to be sharp at 11 a.m. President Draupadi Murmu will receive him. The Prime Minister will be there. And right after the reception, he goes straight to Rajghat. And at noon India time, the official delegation level talks begin and the official opening of the 23rd India-Russia Annual Summit. Continuing coverage right on the other side of this very quick break. Keep it right here on CNN News 18.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
I also want to go across to Akanksha Swaroop, who's there at the Bharat Mandapam. Later this afternoon, both the President and the Prime Minister will be convening the India-Russia CEOs Roundtable, the business forum. And as I outlined a moment ago, one of the things that they want to expand is on trade and cooperation, on expanding the breadth of the trade relationship. Right now, a lot of it is Russian gas and oil, and the trade deficit, like I outlined a moment ago, is the second highest that India has with any country after China. How do they plan to go about it?
Right. So very interestingly, we are at the Bharat Mandapam where the CEO roundtable will be happening. And yesterday was the India-Russia Business Forum. Interestingly, Zaka, the Commerce Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal, was very quick in pointing out that the trade has been flourishing between India and Russia. Nonetheless, it remains skewed and that trade basket has to be diversified. So even though India happens to be one of the largest buyers of Russian defense, also was one of the largest buyers of Russian oil, and that of course has been going down. So it is now going to shift focus over to trade. What is that going to encompass? You're looking at pharmaceuticals, you're looking at fertilizers, agricultural products. Both the sides are looking towards working down, say, the tariff barriers. The Commerce Minister also highlighted that compliance, tariff, and there was a lot of red tapeism involved, which the Modi government has sort of worked towards to reduce, and that will also give a headway in sort of strengthening and deepening this partnership. All of the Russian delegation currently is comprising of, say, corporate honchos from these sectors, which I just enlisted, many of them also belonging to the energy sector, many of them belonging to big machinery sectors as well. The other aspect that we are looking towards is increasing labor mobility. Remember, Russia has lost out close to
Well, those are pictures, viewers, from Raisina Hill. The Prime Minister's cavalcade making its way to Rashtrapati Bhavan for the ceremonial welcome to President Vladimir Putin. As you know, the President of Russia landed yesterday at 7 o'clock in the national capital. He was received personally by Prime Minister Modi, a gesture that completely surprised and overwhelmed, in fact, the Russian delegates and, of course, Mr. Putin himself. Commentary to that effect was made public, thanking, in fact, the Prime Minister for his exceptional gesture of warmth and, of course, goodwill. Now, of course, viewers, the day will unfold in a barrage of meetings declarations, agreements. There are huge expectations, and some of those expectations are set to redefine goals and targets and the very nature of the relationship with Russia. It is, of course, a long-standing relationship, viewers, that dates back decades, but it is going to be cemented and given a new direction, a reset, many people are calling it. Why? Because it will lead specifically to transformation in the nature of the association, making it more broad-based, making it more aligned to India's relationship with other powers like the United States that cover many, many different bases. So we're expecting cooperation, agreements, and all sorts of other joint cooperation in many fields besides the traditional energy and defense, which has dominated transaction between the two countries. Let's go straight across to Akanksha. Akanksha, this ceremonial reception will kick off the functions today. Most of them, of course, will go into the business end. That's where it all begins today. Yesterday, a 3-hour, 40-minute meeting with Mr. Putin, private dinner, conversations. There's the Prime Minister draped in a shawl with the EAM next to him on his right. There's a big Russian delegation that has come through, Akanksha. Just give us a shape of that and, of course, what is expected today.
Right. And the fact that President Putin is on his first state visit since the war began in Ukraine is speaking volumes of the kind of importance and mutual trust that these time-tested allies that Moscow and New Delhi share. The fact that Prime Minister broke away from protocol, went and received his very good friend right at the tarmac, the fact that they shared the car ride back to Prime Minister's residence, where he was also hosted to a private dinner, all of that combined with what we are going to be witnessing tonight, where President Srimati Draupadi Murmu will be hosting the Russian president to that state banquet. It all speaks volumes at a time when this is also making a statement to the wider West that India and Russia are not standing in isolation. They have a strategic autonomy. And as the Chinese state mouthpiece, Global Times, is already highlighting that this is also a statement to the West that we are looking towards multipolarity. This is India and Russia, and of course perhaps even China in the backdrop. Remember, we all have to also refer to the optics of Tianjin. But having said that, yesterday much of that bonhomie has already been going viral, Rahul, and today action is not just going to be at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, but it will also be here where I am at the Bharat Mandapam, where the Ross Congress is taking place. Yesterday was the India-Russia Business Forum, which was also graced by the Russian delegation, and at the same time India's Commerce Minister, who also emphasized on the need for diversification of the India-Russia trade basket, which is of course flourishing, but it is a tad bit skewed. And that's why today, just minutes ago, we broke that news about all the host of agreements that are currently taking place in Ross Congress, where I am currently as we speak. There are agreements. In fact, I can hear thunderous applauses over there as agreements are being signed. But let me quickly run our viewers through the entire gamut of these MOUs that are being signed today.
Just a minute, Akanksha, just a minute. Hold your thoughts on that. I'll come back to you. Action here, of course, at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Ceremonial welcome at the forecourt of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. This is for most state dignitaries. I want to go across to Arun Dhanta. Arun, what are you picking up? I think I'm beginning to see cars coming in which might belong to the Russian delegation.
That's right, Rahul. And we've just seen the visuals of Prime Minister Modi entering into the Rashtrapati Bhavan through that route. This is the route that I can show you right now at this point. This is the Raisina Hills and Kartavya Path, through which in a short while from now you will be seeing the Russian President Vladimir Putin will be entering, and from Maurya Hotel, where he's staying, to Rashtrapati Bhavan. It will not take much time. Within 5 to 7 minutes you will be seeing, once he leaves from the hotel, to reach here, and then of course you will have that ceremonial welcome of Putin, which will officially mark the beginning of his state tour to India. Prime Minister Modi and the President, of course, are already inside. They will be, of course, welcoming, and then the Tri-Services Guard, the contingent of Tri-Services, Air Force, Army and Navy, they all are in formation inside the Rashtrapati Bhavan, and that's the highest honor that India can give to any state head, which will be reflected today in this visit of Vladimir Putin. In a short while from now, Rahul, we are expecting any moment that Vladimir Putin will be reaching here, and then of course that ceremonial welcome, because post that of course we will be seeing Vladimir Putin will be heading to Rajghat, and that will also show the cultural respect that he is giving to our country, of course paying his tribute to Mahatma Gandhi at Rajghat, and then after that he will straight away be heading to Hyderabad, the house for the bilateral meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Vladimir Putin. But here, where we are standing at Kartavya Path, all is set for Vladimir Putin's arrival. And in fact, inside visuals that we saw, that how Rashtrapati Bhavan's forecourt is completely decked up for this grand honor that Vladimir Putin is going to get. Tri-Services formation contingent will be standing in the honor, and that is a reflection, the kind of respect India is giving to Vladimir Putin. Rahul.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that of course was quite clear yesterday. Prime Minister's special gesture receiving, in fact, Vladimir Putin at the airport, surprising the Russian delegates and the delegation and the Russian government. It wasn't quite expected. The president was supposed to land at the airport and then travel to 7 LKM, but the prime minister upstaging all of those commitments by landing up at the airport, greeting the Russian president, and of course then traveling back with him in his modest car, quite frankly, to 7 LKM. And then, of course, viewers, there was that 3-hour, 40-minute long private engagement between the two. Exceeded expectations, to be quite honest. We're, of course, awaiting details about what really transpired so far. Very tight-lipped, but at the Ross Congress, there has been a lot of development. Akanksha was talking about that. I'll bring in Siddhant in just a few moments. But Akanksha, I just wanted a quick update from Rashtrapati Bhavan, but back to you. Lots of activity there where you are. A large number of agreements have already been inked. Just talk us through some of those.
Absolutely, and if I could in fact just request my video journalist Arpit to pan the camera a bit. We are at Ross Congress, and as you can see, there are members of the media fraternity and the Russian delegation all the way from Moscow. They've arrived over here, and inside that Audi here at the Bharat Mandapam is where the signing of all of those agreements is currently taking place, Rahul, as we speak. And so, as I was highlighting earlier, it's an entire gamut of sectors that we are looking at. There's the pharma sector, one of the agreements where it's being signed. You also have, interestingly, the media. There is an agreement between the Prasar Bharati and TASS. There's one between, say, even Gazprom Media Holding. So all of those areas have been covered in, even, say, alcoholic beverage companies, and this is exactly the kind of diversification that India's Commerce Minister Shri Piyush Goyal has been talking about. He's, of course, acknowledged the fact that India and Russia bilateral trade has been flourishing, but it has been a bit lopsided, and that is what India and Russia are looking towards rectifying. I have been in touch with members of the Russian delegation. Many of them are corporate honchos from the pharma sector, from the agro sector, even fertilizers, and many of them also providing big machineries over here. They are looking to invest in India. Now, given that Russia has been deeply impacted by Western sanctions, so their banking sector has also been deeply impacted, which is why rewiring of the money pipes is extremely important if you talk about bringing in the rupee-ruble settlement. And that is something that has been going back all the way to the 1950s. But ever since the war in Ukraine began, Russian banking system has been heavily sanctioned. And so there has been this hesitation within Indian traders to invest in Russia and vice versa. So the rupee ruble system, say the financial digital payment system where we will be linking it through RuPay, will ensure that there's a smooth transaction between both the countries.
Which will build
and there is no isolating,
more commercial
say,
bridges.
of an anti-dollar bloc, which is what US was fearing.
Okay, just stay on with me. I want to bring in Tatiana Kukareva, senior journalist from Moscow. Tatiana Kukareva, thank you very much for joining us. Your quick initial overview of these understandings, these pacts, these agreements that have been signed. Quick comment on that before we cut back to Rashtrapati Bhavan.
Good morning to you, Rahul. Well, this, what we know so far of everything that has been signed and that everything that is still coming, we're looking at more diversification again within the trade between the two countries, which was in the works for quite some time now, obviously. It just so happened that relationship started to be dominated by trading oil. But there is a lot of room for diversification. We've been talking about it for quite some time, from pharmaceuticals to tech to nuclear to textiles, you name it, And from what I'm seeing, we're looking at these pictures from Rashtrapati Bhavan. From what I'm seeing, the Russian delegation, they're in very good mood. And, we're expecting for more to come, obviously, today from these meetings. It's going to be a packed day.
It's going to indeed. Yes, we're all awaiting, of course, President Putin's arrival. The camera is looking straight out to the gate, actually, and there's that whole bandobast, as they call it in India, ceremonial bandobast, waiting the arrival of President Putin. But let me quickly bring in Ross Feingold, former Asia chairman of the Republicans abroad from Taipei, Taiwan, who's looking at this from an American perspective, I presume. Mr. Feingold, all of this taking shape right under the nose or under a cloud, really, of American sanctions on India. We've been here before, of course, but how is America looking at this? What do you think is going to be the reaction in diplomatic circles in D.C.?
The interesting thing about your question is, there could be a variety of reactions in diplomatic circles, or, for example, by members of Congress, whether Republicans or Democrats. But ultimately, the only reaction that matters is President Trump and how he views this. Now, my own opinion is that President Trump very much wants to patch up relations with Prime Minister Modi and with India. There was such a strong relationship during President Trump's first term. There's so many shared interests between India and the United States that I think President Trump does want to reinvigorate that relationship and find a solution on tariffs and other issues. And frankly, the visit of Putin to India comes at a time when U.S. emissaries are meeting with Putin as well, and President Trump has clearly instructed his team to work hard on reaching some kind of peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia. So certainly there's going to be criticism in the United States about this, for sure. But will President Trump himself criticize this? Maybe not.
Well, that's interesting. Let me go straight across to Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Lots of activity this morning, barrage of agreements being signed, perhaps just the beginning of a lot more to come. How do you view this and, of course, the larger geopolitics around this?
Look, we needed a whole load of actual tangible deals, not just MOUs and things like that to come out of this. Because on one hand, Russia needed it to show that it's not isolated. We needed to show because, we've been under tremendous trade pressure from America with the tariffs and things like that. And we have to show we have options. If you remember the last time that Putin and Modi had a summit in China, it brought an instantaneous reaction from Trump, and he very significantly toned down his demands. Now, if just a speech or a handshake is able to produce those results, imagine what actual deals would produce. So I think that is what they're aiming for. It's a very carefully...
Are you expecting him to make a comment? Are you expecting him to make a comment at all?
I absolutely expect Trump to come out with something. Look, I've been watching on Twitter that a whole bunch of Europeans have been having their meltdowns. Now, you know, Europe is full of sanctimonious humbug. They believe they drink too much of their own Kool-Aid or wine or whatever it is they have in Europe. The Americans tend to be more circumspect, but not Trump. Trump is very good in that he says what he thinks.
So when you say the Americans, you mean the establishment as a whole. That's what you're saying.
Trump is representing the establishment, yes.
Right, okay, wonderful. Let me open this up. Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat, also joins us. Can a diplomat ever be a former diplomat? I don't think so, but let's go with that for a few moments. Mr. Sajjanhar, good morning to you. What are we seeing here today? Are we seeing a reset? Are we seeing a recalibration? Are we seeing the beginning of a new axis, not anti-West, non-West? Are we seeing perhaps Russia also beginning to deleverage a little bit from China, maybe looking at this as an opportunity? What are we seeing?
Yeah, thank you very much, Rahul, for having me. I don't think it's a reset. You know, as the Prime Minister himself said when Mr. Putin landed, that this is a time-tested partnership. And I think we need to be cognizant of that right from the 1950s. I could, in fact, even go before that. You know, whether it's Mahatma Gandhi, Leo Tolstoy, you know, our spiritual connect with Russia has been, you know, very long-standing, and with the Soviet Union. It has been there for a long, long time. But if you were to look at, you know, more contemporary times from 2000 onward, you know, when Putin just became from a prime minister, he became the president. And
yes, you can see the visuals of the Russian President Vladimir Putin entering the Rashtrapati Bhavan. The route you can see he's on Kartavya Path right now, entering, of course, towards the Rashtrapati Gate. You can see the entire convoy of the vehicles of Vladimir Putin. He's just entered. He's on Kartavya Path going towards Raisina Hill, and the next stop, of course, is the Rashtrapati Bhavan. The gate is opened there. The big gate is waiting for. You can see this convoy of Putin right now on your screens, and Prime Minister Modi and President Draupadi Murmu along with the External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar are already inside a red carpet welcome for Vladimir Putin here in the Rashtrapati Bhavan's forecourt, and this will mark the official beginning of his state visit to India. You've just seen the vehicles and the convoy of Vladimir Putin entering on Raisina Road, and now just enter the Rashtrapati Bhavan. These are the visuals that you can see of the convoy of, and in fact, a a motorcade was also accompanying this convoy, the car of Vladimir Putin, in which he is traveling, and then you will of course be seeing that ceremonial welcome for which Prime Minister Modi, President are already inside.
My colleague is sort of suggesting that this is going to now kick off the business end of the state visit. I just want to ask you, Mr. Sajjanhar, yesterday you had a 3-hour 40-minute meeting between the Prime Minister and President Putin. It's a private dinner. I'm sure they must have squared their sights.
no, absolutely. I definitely, you know, meaning, of course, you can say that, you know, it was a freewheeling discussion. There was no set agenda, etc. But of course, all the items are there in the minds of both the leaders, and they would have discussed them and they would have ticked them off. Okay, as far as S-400 is concerned, what is it? What are the possibilities? What can we do? What about S-500? You know, it has not been tried and tested. Of course, Russia is very interested in Su-57. That's a 4.5, fifth generation aircraft platform. What is it that, you know, how is India looking at it in terms of the mobility agreement?
So do you think they would have gone into all of these nitty-gritties?
Well, not the nitty-gritty, but the broad contours of what is possible as far as the two sides are concerned. You would remember, Rahul, you know, as far as mobility, because that is something that is coming on the agenda, in my view, for the first time, except for the initial discussion when Prime Minister Modi was the chief guest at the Vladivostok Far East Economic Summit that took place in 2019. At that time also it was thought that, you know, this huge long border that Russia has with China, and there is this possibility of, you know, some intrusions, some incursions, and you want Indians to come in. That time it started, and I think it is getting to fruition now.
Okay.
And I think it'll be taken forward in the agreements.
General Pandey?
Yeah, I think one of the very top agenda on the table would be possibly talking about Ukraine-Russia thing, which is how it is progressing and the polarization which is taking place and how maybe India may be able to leverage or Russia may be able to use Indian position
Do
to
you
leverage.
think there would have been, oh, well, those are the pictures that we're all waiting for. I'm sorry to have cut you off, General Saab. We'll pick up on that, Doctor. Look at these pictures, important pictures today because the world is watching, isn't it? The world is watching, Doctor. The world is watching, the West is watching very closely. He's already said that Europe is having a meltdown. Trump could be waking up or going to sleep, and you know what happened.
Security.
главные стратегические союзники Моди, сами уровня отношения между странами, что называется, прошли на государственном уровне, здесь он подтвердит ранее достигнутые договоренности, вывести отношения на качественно. Главный стратегический союзник России, President Narendra Modi, в преддверии саммита на высоком уровне, отношения между странами, что называется, прошли проверку президента. Видит Владимира Путина на государственном уровне, он подтвердил ранее достигнутые договоренности и вывести отношения на качественно новый уровень.
विमान अंतर सेना सम्मान गार्ड निरीक्षण के लिए हाजिर।
उनकी तरफ से संकेत आ चुका है और अब गाड़ियों का काफिला धीरे धीरे पहुंच जाएगा। मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ कि वहां पर आपने देखा गाड़ी पहली गाड़ी आप देखते
Bhagavad Gita, in fact, to President Putin yesterday in that lovely meeting that they had one-on-one. But coming back to Mr. Ashok Sajjanhar, these are important pictures. Of course, the optics are all there for the world to see. But this relationship, and one must bring in this caveat. Look, every country will exert influence, dictate terms, and possibly even outcomes. They'll also, of course, bend morally to try and twist the environment in their favor and perhaps also their interests. India has to accept this, doesn't it? India has to accept that there's going to be pushback, there are going to be others who are going to try and play them. And this really is something that geopolitics is sort of infused with, isn't it?
No, absolutely. You're very right, Rahul. I think the silver lining as far as the situation today is concerned is that India is in a much more powerful position. You know, whether it's economically, when we are talking about just about even 10 years ago, we are the 10th or the 11th largest economy, and you know, many people talk of those times as the fragile five. There was, you know, as far as the policy paralysis, and there were scams, you know, coming out of cupboards every, you know, week or 2 weeks or something. So the governance was in shambles quite a bit. But now, over the last 10 years, we have become the 4th largest economy, 3rd largest, soon to be. So our possibilities of standing up to these pushbacks has increased. The other, I think, is also leadership. The other is vision. Because I think through this Ukraine crisis, Russia-Ukraine conflict, and the pressure that has been put on India, the coercion that has been put on India, number one, to criticize or condemn Russia for its attack. Number two, to stop taking this oil. I think India has displayed a spine of steel, which I think the Russians didn't expect it, the world didn't expect it. And so India has really come of age in terms of, you know, occupying its power of its position of power and strength on the global stage. And that is what we are seeing here. Because, you know, the visit even otherwise would have been, but this, the show of all this pomp and glory and, you know, all these frills and whistles and everything, it shows that India is committed to this partnership. We've been speaking about it's a time-tested partnership. It's a very, you know, important pillar of our foreign policy relations with the Soviet Union and with Russia. But here, under these changing global situation, you know, the turmoil that is taking place. And maybe one point also I could mention, you see, this is not, Rahul, the first visit of President Putin to India. He's been to India during Mr. Modi's tenure 4 times.
That's right. I mean, you know, you've had this reciprocity.
No, but the point I want to know, reciprocity is there. Point I want to make is Mr. Modi never went to the airport to receive him earlier. This is the first time he's gone to receive him. So I think we really need to look at it as to what has changed over these 11 years. He went to receive Obama in 2015. Donald Trump in 2020, Sheikh Hasina in 2017, whatever. We can talk about. But for Mr. Putin, this is the first time he has gone.
So there's an assertion, you're saying.
Absolutely.
There's an assertion of our autonomy. There's an assertion, decision making. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think I'll like to give a credit to Prime Minister Modi for one simple thing, that he's changed the protocol paradigm. He set a stage for a new system of going and receiving the way it has never been, you know, protocol was never broken in the Indian system. But to leverage the position, and actually if you look at our country today, besides being the 4th economic power now, right, we don't have much to technically offer for as a leverage. But diplomacy has been combined so beautifully, a personal connection. So when you're talking about Trump comes, what happens? I am very sure Prime Minister Modi will be able to manage the similar situation so that to reach out
Well,
a
he'll have to
bonhomie.
also go to the airport because everything will be measured. All the optics will be measured.
I'm sure he will do it.
Okay.
I'm sure he will do it. So
Ananya is joining us, Ananya Bhatnagar joining us from Rajghat, where we are expected President Putin to arrive shortly. Ananya, over to you.
Well, absolutely, Rahul. President Putin is to arrive here very, very shortly, and it's very symbolic as well because in diplomacy, the signaling is a very important thing. And President Putin now coming to, in fact, Rajghat to pay homage to Mahatma Gandhi, who had always preached, non-violence, and at a time when Russia has already dealt with the war, and India had also played a very crucial part in it. And how in the morning also a Bhagavad Gita was presented, which completely gives on a signal that wars are something that needs to be fought at the right and the perfect timings, is what the message of the Bhagavad Gita has been. Shri Krishna has always given that, and that is a kind of messaging that this diplomacy could show. Not only that, President Putin's visit to Rajghat could also show a message of peace and non-violence, because it was Mahatma Gandhi who always preached non-violence, and definitely now President Putin visiting here also gives out certain kind of signals. He will be arriving here very, very shortly.
Okay.
All the routes have been blocked, and
well, we'll come right back to you the moment we get visuals of President Putin coming through. That's going to happen very quickly. If the roads are all blocked and sanitized, that's going to happen very quickly. But Mr. Iyer Mitra, yes.
So, you have to admire, Modi's double messaging out here. You give somebody the Bhagavad Gita, what is it? It's internecine warfare between two sets of brothers. Now, Putin has always claimed the Ukrainians are our brothers. So, this is literally like Krishna handing the Bhagavad Gita over to Arjuna, saying, well, if you're going to fight your brothers, you better know why you're fighting your brothers. Number one. Number two, he's taking him, now see the many ways of spinning this. One is every visiting dignitary goes to Rajghat to pay homage. But you can also spin this another way and say, this is Modi taking him there because Gandhi said lots of things about non-violence, but he also said, given a choice between cowardice and violence, I will choose violence any day, every day. So, you can pass this off as to the West. I'm sure Modi will get on the call with President Trump and tell him, see, I gave him the Bhagavad Gita and I told him all about peace. I took him to Gandhi's grave and preached peace to him.
Peace, yes.
And in the car, in the Aureus, he'll be telling Putin, see, this is what it says when you want to kill your brothers, this is what you need to do. And Mahatma Gandhi said this, no cowardice.
Okay, we're going to go straight across now. We're going to exit coverage for just a few moments because there has been massive convulsions in the aviation sector, viewers. I know this is a very jarring transition, but we have to update you. India's largest airline is facing its biggest operation.
हाँ तो कलर टोन सेट कर रहा था वो अच्छा अच्छा
भारत के सामने जो विकल्प है एक बड़ा विकल्प था जिनके साथ आप कई क्षेत्रों में जो है वो आर्थिक क्षेत्र में समझौते कर सकते हैं, चाहे वो डिफेंस सेक्टर से लेकर प्रोडक्शन पे या आप मेडिसिन के क्षेत्र में है। और भारत की तरफ से ये भी था कि भारत के अंदर बना गारमेंट जो है वो एक्सपोर्ट जो है वो किया जाएगा रशिया के अंदर, जिससे भारत के अंदर जो है विदेशी कैमरा लाइट है कैमरा है ना हाँ कौन सा उधर जो है सब सीसीटीवी कैमरा वो कैमरा ऐसा स्पीकर के नीचे टेबल नहीं है नीचे बैठे हैं इसलिए इनके बंदे यार अरे बैठने नहीं वो तो वहाँ से लेके आएंगे वहाँ से लेके आएंगे वो बैठने का साइन करने का अंदर हम पीछे दीवार के पीछे वो करेंगे साइन करेंगे नाम लिखते हैं हाँ
The cavalcade of President Putin has arrived, in fact, at Rajghat. Remember that it is, in fact, a very, very significant moment in Indian diplomacy and, in fact, the between China and two countries. President Putin now reaching, in fact, Rajghat to pay homage.
ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरे नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान। ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरे नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम।
वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे। पर दुखे उपकार करे तोए मन अभिमान नाणे रे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे। सकळ लोक सहुने वंदे निंदा न करे केनी रे। वाच काछ मन निश्चल राखे धन धन जननी तेनी रे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे। समदृष्टीने तृष्णा त्यागी परस्त्री जेने मात रे। जिह्वा थकी असत्य न बोले पर धन नव झाले हाथ रे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे।
Agreed with his constitution.
Yeah, I think what we're dealing here is India has had to deal with Putin as well as Rasputin. And by Rasputin, I mean Trump, not just symbolically with all the revelations stumbling out of his cupboard. The fact of the matter is that it's actually, ironically, Trump that has shown us the way. It seems horrible, the wordplay, but, you know, transactional. Every relationship from now on of every nation is no longer who's a friend, who's a trusted friend, or, I mean, Russia is transactional with us. You know, we've purchased $130 billion worth of Russian oil in the last 3 years. You know, for us, yes, our trade is not as high as it was.
Okay.
But the fact of the matter is, every nation is transactional.
Let me bring in Tatiana Kukareva on that point. Tatiana Kukareva, yes, the optics are great, but will they translate into outcomes which will also, of course, at some level balance this equation? India has, of course, I won't want to use the word obliged, it's obliged itself, but it has also helped out Mr. Putin by securing oil, procuring oil from Russia, arms, this, that, the other. But it hasn't really been reciprocated in the form that India would have liked. Will that change from here on?
Well, Rahul, let's not forget that by buying Russian oil, India has not just obliged Russia, but also all of the countries that have enjoyed buying oil at the same price. Because we all remember, this is economics 101. You take away a huge producer from the market, what happens to the price for the other producers? They go up.
Yeah.
So this is, in a sense, the general kind of, it displays the whole situation from a very different perspective. I believe it was actually Minister Puri who first said that, India essentially bail out the whole world by taking...
Look, that is well understood, and that's why I said it also obliged itself, no doubt. But fundamentally, I think we're at that point now in our relationship where we need it to become more broad-based and fairer, I think, between the two partners. Do you think that's actually going to happen? Are we going to see that transition, that pivot?
It's interesting that you would say fairer, because I believe that this has been a very fair relationship, to begin with, between Prime Minister Modi and President Putin. It is very kind of at face value for both of them, because you said that, it's been said on the panel that Trump has shown us the way in a way. What he did, I believe, was, as he always does, simplify things. In the meantime, the relationship between Moscow and New Delhi has always been quite fair, and it has always been a relationship of equals. And this trend, I believe, is going to very much continue. We're going to see those accords signed today. We're going to see all of the details. We'll be able to finally discuss what has actually been signed. But this has been a very frank, honest, and at face value relationship.
Will we go with that characterization, General?
I will not agree. Look, after 1971, or rather in last about two and a half decades, I think India has been giving back the whatever gratitude, in terms of whatever Russians have done or Soviets have done for us. We have been actually giving back to them in kind, in terms of relationship and everything. You look at this issue of Op Sindoor, and that is a time when there was a certain very eerie silence which came about from Russia, because China was actually, they were locked very, very closely to China, and this equation, they didn't come out very overtly and openly about supporting India in so many words, as much as, but maybe, they were taking a call with Prime Minister having said that it's not an era of war. So I think we need to read words, but I think in this relationship, in last about two and a half decades, India has given far more much in terms of relationship to Russia than it has actually come from that side. In spite of the geopolitical constraints, wherein we need to lean towards the West, so that our, linkages are broad-based, right? We should just not get stuck. You look at COVID, you look at Ukraine war. Every disruption with one pipeline has got major issue for our weapon program. I
was looking at Russian imports. China exports a lot to Russia, actually. Lots of other things that we export to a large number of other countries. Very quickly, you wanted to make a point. I have to take a break, right?
Just as to echo what General said, the Nehruvian model was that, yes, there are friends, there are enemies. And we learnt it the hard way in 1971, General, you mentioned. Most of our Arab allies sided with Pakistan.
Yes.
In fact, it was Israel who helped us. So, this is what the Trumpian world has said. There are no friends, there are no enemies, only people you interact with, transact.
Let me very quickly take a break here. We'll come right back. Good question and a good discussion. Remember, viewers, a huge disruption, air travel today, Indigo, really letting down consumers. We're going to be tracking that story. We're back in just 2 minutes. Don't go away.
expand on, and you will get an announcement of this later in the afternoon, is on small modular reactors. Russia's state-run nuclear corporation, Rosatom, has now announced that it has delivered the first consignment of nuclear fuel for the initial loading of Unit 3 at the Kudankulam nuclear power plant in Tamil Nadu. The fuel delivery marks a key milestone in the ongoing construction and commissioning of the plant's next reactor unit. There are 6 units that the Russian side was supposed to build. 2 of them are operational now. This is the nuclear fuel that's been now confirmed. For the 3rd unit, there are now units 4, 5 and 6 that need to be commissioned as well. So this is something that you will hear about when those intergovernmental agreements are signed later this afternoon. Here in our studios, Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey, security analyst, is there. We have Abhijit Iyer Mitra, senior fellow from the Institute for Peace and Conflict Studies, and Anand Raghunathan, professor and familiar face here on CNN News 18. Welcome, gentlemen. General Pandey, what is at stake, as you see it, as President Putin and Prime Minister Modi begin the 23rd Annual India-Russia Summit at a time when there seems to be this geopolitical rebalancing going on?
Yeah, I think firstly, a lot of people are putting focus on defense deal and trade facet, how to overcome, bridge the gap of trade gap and all, but I look at it in this whole shifting of geopolitics in not only in the region, but more importantly in the world stage. I think a multipolarity is now getting established by this visit of the 10th visit of Putin in since the time he has been in the power. I think it's very, very important and significant. And I think for both, not only for Putin, a lot of people are saying it's important for Putin to showcase to his own population, his own people and to the world that he is not isolated in this whole context, which is war which is happening with Ukraine, while Europeans and the Americans may be getting after him by sanctioning and all. But yet he has got places to visit. He's already been visiting in last couple of months. He's been out of his country and visited a number of states, and therefore I think it's very important for him domestically, but I think it's also very important for us. While we may not talk of it more often, that there is a leverage. We are an emerging power. If you look at this articles coming out by diplomats against the visit of Putin in our country and the discussion which is happening, why is he visiting our country, puts India back into the focus. So while number of people may feel that it is not so good, but I look at it that it's very important that India's relevance is being recognized.
Here's headlines this hour. It's the top of noon. Russian president receives a ceremonial welcome at the Rashtrapati Bhavan and now visits Rajghat. The bonhomie continues. High octane optics, but will they translate into outcomes? The billion dollar question, viewers. Putin's day 2 centers on key bilateral talks with defense, trade and energy in focus. About 10 intergovernmental agreements and 15 MOUs expected. Russia's Rosatom sends first nuclear fuel shipment for Tamil Nadu's Kudankulam Unit 3, delivery timed to Putin's India visit. And as flight disruptions continue, Delhi airport cancels all Indigo flights today till midnight. Airline shares also down by 9% as Indigo really lets down the Indian consumer, the passenger. Government helpless, pointing fingers at everyone, but not itself. Aviation Ministry blames Indigo for the mess, criticizes the airline's handling of the situation. Air Minister likely today in Parliament. But what is he really going to say? Perhaps there will be another concession for Indigo, which will be a travesty, viewers. Travesty. And of course, it's not looking good as far as the government and the backlash is concerned. Everyone beginning to question the government, the opposition. There's a massive meltdown, political fight, and for once the opposition is pinning the government on what is a fundamentally germane issue. DMK moves the Supreme Court against High Court order on Deepam Rao. BJP stamps anti-Hindu mindset. And there might be some good news for those who are taking loans and have to repay them, the RBI slashes the repo rate by 25 basis points to about 5.25%. And I said, bonanza for those who have taken loans, their interest rates might come down. As it's being said, viewers, and these are, of course, shibboleths. These are platitudinous words, but the optics dominating the morning. Russian President Vladimir Putin been given a ceremonial reception at the Rashtrapati Bhavan that was looking absolutely splendid. India does these receptions brilliantly, but clearly the exaltation of the president is a loaded message that is being conveyed by Prime Minister Modi to all of those who have wanted India to tamp down relations with Russia. So a big message going out from New Delhi this morning. President Putin also visits Rajghat. Some people are interpreting this as a subtle messaging to Putin that he should adopt Mahatma Gandhi's peaceful ways and perhaps get off his warlike soapbox. But all of that, of course, are the optics. Whether they will now translate into outcomes as the business leg of this visit gets underway at the Hyderabad House, where we are going to have intensive meetings between the two delegations, of course led by Prime Minister Modi on the one hand and President Putin on the other. And I want to go straight across to Siddhant for more on this. Siddhant and Akash also joining us. Akash, plethora of agreements. There wants to be, of course, New Delhi wants this relationship to become broad-based, cover not just the military aspects as it has and energy, but also trade. And also, of course, keeping in mind that one has to strike a balance when one comes to committing. Akash.
Oh yes, Rahul, you said, not just military, but military is also one important aspect. And, I was just talking to the colleagues here, the reporters here, and, we were thinking about the sort of equipment and platforms we have in the armed forces today. You talk about Indian Army, they have Russian tanks, they have Russian rifles and everything else. You talk about Indian Navy, they have frigates, they have corvettes, they have ships, they have aircraft carrier, in fact, from Russia. You talk about Indian Air Force, they have Su-30 MKI and in fact the other aircraft that they have used in the past, and also the MiG-29 from Russia. So India has relied and India was dependent on Russia at one point in time, and even now when we are focusing on Atmanirbharta, we know that how recently we have in fact imported our last frigate from Russia. At this point in time, in fact, when it is about air defense, so we are looking forward to the additional batteries of S-400, in fact the additional missiles to the existing batteries, and also the S-500. Then there are talks about Su-57, Panchir mobile defense system, and a number of other systems as well. So this particular visit is important. Of course, it is not limited to only the defense agreements or the sort of MOUs that we are looking forward to. But yes, you rightly pointed out about the trade. And in fact, we are learning that there are total 10 items, that we are going to see the announcement for in some time from now. In fact, we were seeing the visuals initially of the Guard of Honor, the Tri-Services Guard of Honor at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. And then President Vladimir Putin has reached Rajghat recently. And after that, he is going to come at Hyderabad House here in some time from now, and we will be showing you the visuals. This is going to be an important day given the fact that we are going to see a number of outcomes, not just limited to defense, but yes, defense is one important aspect of that. Rahul.
Well, there you see Prime Minister Modi now waiting for President Putin at the Hyderabad House. That's the front porch. After which, of course, the two leaders will go in. There will be a photograph with all the flags and the other regalia. And beyond that, viewers, there are going to be some meetings that will, of course, stretch on into the afternoon, where the nitty-gritty of this relationship will take shape on paper with inked agreements. And all of that will then, of course, be subject to conversations, scrutiny, and, of course, viewers' analysis. So a busy day, not just for analysts and commentators and the diplomatic community, but also the stakeholders. And there's one of them in that stretch limousine. And you're going to see President Putin appear The Prime Minister is going to then lead him into the Hyderabad house, Mr. Sajjanhar. This is the business end, isn't it? What happens really?
Yeah, this is the business end, but of course, what we've seen before that has been the setting. And in fact, when the leaders are meeting, there are also businessmen and diplomats who've been doing their own work. It's not that, it suddenly sort of, magically falls onto the table for them to sign when they are there after their parleys are over. So we had all these ministers. For instance, the defense minister came before Mr. Putin arrived. He had his meeting with the Raksha Mantri, and now there is also the foreign minister Sergei Lavrov also came in. We also have this provision of the 2+2, which is the defense minister and the foreign minister of both the countries interacting. That having been said, I think, Rahul, you've been discussing as to whether all these photo ops and all this, the atmosphere that has been created, is this really going to lead to something substantial and substantive? I think the indications are very, very promising. Indications are very positive in my view, because Mr. Putin has traveled here with 7 ministers. That's a large number of ministers from a country to accompany the president. Number 2, there are more than 100 CEOs, as we understand, have accompanied Mr. Putin. Also, I don't remember that, whenever he's come earlier, for instance, I remember his last visit, which was in December 2021. He was on the Indian soil for barely 4 hours. So, at times the visits have been very short. This is an extended 27-hour visit. There is going to be also a meeting at Bharat Mandapam where all the business content is going to be discussed. So I am very hopeful that there is interest both in Russia. It wants to reduce its dependence on China. For India, it is very important because we want to reduce the trade deficit that we have with Russia. So I think that it is going to be a win-win situation if the trade element, the trade component of the relationship also grows to be as significant and as major as our defense component is, as our nuclear energy component is, and as also our fossil fuel oil energy trade is on this side.
Okay, so let me just go straight back across to Akash. Akash, are we expected now to see major movement in other sectors besides defense? But first, give us a quick overview about the defense sector itself, India's expectations from it. Remember, this meeting is taking place in the backdrop of Operation Sindoor and the success of Russian equipment that India deployed.
Oh yes, S-400 was very much deployed and in fact shot down multiple aircraft, that was revealed later by the Indian Air Force chief. And right now, we are of course, awaiting the additional batteries announcement. But recently, DAC approved around 300 missiles. And we are expecting that this would somewhere be finding a mention in the sort of statement that we are expecting in some time from now, Rahul. Other than that, Su-57 is of course one big ticket agenda, that both the leaders are expected to discuss, and they must have discussed. Yesterday, in fact, Raksha Mantri met his Russian counterpart and, at Manekshaw Center, and in that particular meeting, we have been given to understand there are a number of things were discussed, and Su-57 was one of those things. Su-57 is a fighter aircraft, 5th generation fighter aircraft, and as far as India is concerned, so India is of course looking for a 5th generation fighter aircraft, given the fact that they are very much working on AMCA. We know that AMCA is going to take some time. They need to fill the gap, and that's why they are looking for one alternative. Su-57, there are advantages and disadvantages, but talking about the advantages, they have the whole ecosystem for the repair and overhauling, and that's the reason why they are somewhere relying on in fact inclining towards the Russian choice. But again, it is not very confirmed if or not India is going for it. Then Panjshir is one system, Rahul, that was very much displayed during the Dubai Air Show. And we have been told, in fact, the defense sources are somewhere, indicating that there is a possibility that India might go for a mix of S-400 squadrons and some of the Pantsir units. Pantsir is, remember, a mobile unit that can, utilize both big and small missiles, and that can take care of the sort of drones that are coming towards you. During Operation Sindoor, we saw a number of aerial threats, were sent by Pakistan. All of these threats were neutralized by either the S-400 or the indigenous systems, like Akash missile and MRSAMs of Indian Air Force, like, Pichora guns, and in fact the other guns that are used by the Indian Army AD wing. But other than that, also we have a number of cooperations. SSN submarine is something that we are anticipating. Yesterday there were reports about a new agreement. Of course, we know that how there are existing agreements, and on in that particular agreement, Russia is going to deliver one SSN class submarine by 2028. So we are expecting that some sort of mention can be there. Other than defense, Rahul, we are expecting a number of MOUs, a number of, agreements. 10 agreements, as I mentioned earlier, 10 items we have been given to understand are the important items that both the leaders will be announcing somewhere, fertilizers, and in fact, the trade that you rightly pointed out, there are some sort of MOUs that are very much anticipated. A number of CEOs are traveling with the Russian president. One expert who is possibly sitting in the studios mentioned that how ministers have been traveling, and the foreign minister, defense minister, and other ministers are traveling. We saw yesterday that how bilateral talks happened between the defense minister, and right now, in some time from now, when we are expecting this press statement,
okay, some
we are
comments, some comments coming through. Let's listen in. Let's boost the gnat. Okay, we're expecting some of those opening comments. Very important. Those will be the first words that we will hear from both these leaders as they meet. Let's listen in.
जब आपने कार्यभार संभाला और भारत की आपकी यात्रा पहली हुई, उसको आज 25 साल हो गए, और उस पहली यात्रा में ही स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप की एक मजबूत नींव रखी गई थी.
Ваше превосходительство, дорогой друг, я очень рад этой возможности встретиться с вами и поприветствовать вас и вашу делегацию в нашей стране. Начиная с вчерашнего дня, представители вашей делегации провели очень много мероприятий, заседаний с своими коллегами с индийской стороны. И мы видим очень много результатов и соглашений по окончанию нашего саммита ежегодного. Поэтому я уверен, что наш саммит станет весьма успешным. И ваш нынешний визит, уважаемый господин президент, имеет по-настоящему историческое значение. Ровно 25 лет назад вы впервые посетили Индию в качестве президента Российской Федерации и изложили основы нашего стратегического партнерства.
मेरे लिए पर्सनली भी खुशी की बात है कि आपके साथ मेरे परिचय को और संबंधों को उसको भी 25 साल हो गए हैं.
Для меня лично тоже это важное событие, потому что мы знакомы с вами 25 лет.
एक्सेलेंसी, मैं मानता हूं कि ये जो 2001 में आपने जो भूमिका अदा की, एक विजनरी लीडर कैसे सोचता है, कहां से शुरू करता है और संबंधों को कहां तक पहुंचा सकता है, इसका एक उत्तम उदाहरण भारत रशिया के संबंध है.
Уважаемый господин президент, ваша роль, начиная с 2000 года, за последние 2,5 десятилетия, свидетельствует о вашем дальновидном и твердом руководстве и о том, как развивать двусторонние отношения. И это хороший пример для других отношений, как индийско-российские отношения развиваются.
एक्सेलेंसी, यूक्रेन के संकट के बाद हमारी लगातार चर्चा होती रही है. आपने भी समय समय पर एक सच्चे मित्र के रूप में हमें सभी चीजों से अवगत कराया है. मैं समझता हूं कि विश्वास बहुत बड़ी ताकत है, और आपको मैंने अनेक बार इस विषय की चर्चा भी की है और विश्व समक्ष भी मैंने रखा है. विश्व का कल्याण शांति के मार्ग पर ही है. हम सबको मिलकर के शांति के रास्ते तलाशने चाहिए. और पिछले दिनों जो प्रयास चल रहे हैं, मुझे पूरा विश्वास है कि विश्व फिर से एक बार शांति की दिशा में लौटेगा।
Уважаемый господин президент, мы регулярно обмениваемся мнениями по поводу Украины. Вы, как истинный друг, рассказываете мне о том, что происходит в этом направлении. Это свидетельствует о глубоком доверии между нашими странами. Это и есть сила, настоящая сила наших отношений. Мы видим, мир переживает очень много перемен, но мы последовательно поддерживаем позиции установления мира, скорейшего установления мира, и поддерживаем все усилия недавние в этом направлении. И мы должны все работать сообща для того, чтобы работать в этом направлении для установления мира. Я полностью уверен, что мир пойдет вновь на этом пути.
एक्सेलेंसी, पिछले दिनों विश्व समुदाय के सभी नेताओं से जब भी मेरी बात हुई और उन्होंने जब विस्तार से मेरे चर्चा की, मैंने हमेशा कहा है कि भारत न्यूट्रल नहीं, भारत का पक्ष है और वो पक्ष शांति का है। हम शांति के हर प्रयासों का समर्थन करते हैं और हम शांति के हर प्रयासों के साथ कंधे से कंधा मिला करके खड़े हैं।
Ваше превосходительство, когда я встречаюсь с мировыми лидерами, я всегда им говорю, что Индия не нейтральная страна. У Индии нет нейтральной позиции, у нас своя позиция, и эта позиция в пользу мира, это позиция мира. И мы поддерживаем все усилия, которые направлены на установление мира, и мы будем двигаться плечом к плечу со всеми державами, которые держатся этой пути.
पूरे विश्व ने कोविड से लेकर के अब तक कई संकटों से गुजरा है। हम आशा करते हैं कि बहुत ही जल्द विश्व को चिंताओं से मुक्ति मिलेगी और एक सही दिशा में प्रगति के राह पर विश्व समुदाय को एक नई आशा पैदा होगी। एक्सेलेंसी, मुझे पूरा भरोसा है कि आज दिन भर हम अनेक विषयों पर चर्चा करने वाले हैं। भारत और रशिया के आर्थिक संबंधों का अधिक विस्तार हो, हम नई नई ऊंचाइयों को प्राप्त करें, ऐसे बहुत ही आशावादी आउटकम के साथ हम हमारी इस मीटिंग को आगे बढ़ाएंगे, यह पूरा विश्वास है।
Уважаемый господин президент, весь мир страдал от пандемии ковид, и были также разные другие кризисы, поэтому мы надеемся, что мир вновь на пути прогресса, развития, и наша встреча будет вселить надежду в этот вопрос. Уважаемый господин президент, сегодня весь день мы будем разговаривать по разным темам. Пускай наша встреча придаст новый импульс нашему экономическому сотрудничеству. Мы возлагаем большие надежды на нашу сегодняшнюю встречу, и мы ожидаем хороших результатов по итогам нашей встречи.
माय फ्रेंड, मैं फिर से एक बार आपका और आपके डेलीगेशन हृदय से बहुत-बहुत स्वागत करता हूं।
Дорогой друг, еще раз хотел бы поприветствовать вас и вашу делегацию в Индию.
Спасибо.
Спасибо большое. Thank you very much. Уважаемый господин премьер-министр, дорогие друзья, прежде всего спасибо большое за приглашение.
Excellency, Prime Minister, dear friends, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me.
И за вчерашний очень добрый вечер.
And for the yesterday's evening too, it was very good.
Дружески и в то же время с такой содержательной, очень полезной беседой.
We had a friendly and at the same time a very substantial talk.
У нас была возможность, и дали мне такую возможность подробно рассказать о том, что происходит на как раз украинском направлении.
I could share a great deal of details about the events taking place in Ukraine.
И что нами предпринимается совместно с некоторыми другими партнерами, в том числе с Соединенными Штатами, по вопросу возможного мирного урегулирования этого кризиса.
And the actions we are taking together with some partners, including the United States, on a possible peaceful settlement.
Спасибо вам за это внимание и спасибо за ваши усилия, направленные на разрешение этой ситуации.
Thank you for the attention and for your efforts aimed at finding a solution to this situation.
Что касается наших отношений, то они действительно носят очень глубокий исторический характер, как бы мы его не характеризовали, какими бы эпитетами его не украшали. Важно другое, важно содержание. Содержание очень глубокое.
Our relations are deeply rooted into history, but it is not the words that matter, it is the substance of the matter which is very profound.
Мы этим очень дорожим, и мы видим, что вы, уважаемый господин премьер-министр, уделяете этому тоже очень большое личное внимание.
We really appreciate that, and the fact that you, Excellency Prime Minister, pay special personal attention to that.
За прошедшие годы нами проделана очень большая работа в развитии наших отношений.
Over the past years, we have done a great deal of work to develop our relationship.
И по мере развития наших стран, по мере развития экономик наших государств, возможности нашего сотрудничества расширяются.
As our countries and our economies move forward, we have more opportunities for cooperation.
У нас появляются новые направления.
We open additional areas for cooperation,
связанные с высокими технологиями,
including those related to high tech,
связанные с развитием и совместной работы в области авиации, космоса, высоких технологий в широком смысле слова, искусственного интеллекта.
As well as the cooperation in the sphere of aircraft, space exploration, high-tech and artificial intelligence.
У нас очень доверительные отношения в сфере военно-технического взаимодействия.
We have very close and trusting cooperation in the military and technical area.
Мы намерены двигаться по всем этим направлениям.
And we are planning to move forward in all of these areas.
Это только лишний раз подчеркивает уровень, характер и доверительность наших связей.
This once again underscores the level and the trust of our relationship.
Наши команды очень хорошо поработали в преддверии этого визита.
Our teams have done a great work before this visit.
Подготовлен целый ряд документов солидных.
They have prepared a great number of documents for us.
У нас есть возможность на чем-то остановиться, что-то обсудить дополнительно.
We have an opportunity to talk in more detail about some of them.
И уверен, что мы сегодняшний рабочий день завершим с хорошим результатом.
I am sure that we will have a very fruitful working day.
Спасибо.
Thank you very much.
For the first time, now we know what actually transpired yesterday in that 3-hour, 40-minute meeting. And I'm going to get all our experts, Ms. Kukureva from Russia and Mr. Sajjanhar from New Delhi into this conversation. President Putin, Mr. Sajjanhar, making some important revelations, saying that they actually had gone into the nitty-gritties of the situation in Ukraine and, of course, the peace efforts. How do you see this very frank sort of revelation coming from President Putin, making clear that there were no elephants in the room that were not addressed, so to speak?
No, absolutely. I think what stands out in my view from both these very short interventions that have been made by the two leaders, that the Russia-Ukraine conflict came straight center as far as their pronouncements are concerned. When Prime Minister Modi was speaking, his first, he didn't speak about the bilateral relations. His first element was Ukraine. And similarly, it was for Mr. Putin. I think that is understandable because they know that the whole world is watching. And they know that the world will be seeing. Because, bilaterally, of course, these two countries can continue to do what they want to do. But what is important is whether there is going to be some push as far as this is concerned. So I think as far as Prime Minister Modi, he made his point of view very clear.
But a very nuanced point of view by the Prime Minister. Did not take any sort of a position that would have given America any bragging rights or suggest that America had any pressure. Very, very non-judgmental statement saying that it's wrong, and he obviously addressed this to the West and the Western capitals, wrong to say that India doesn't take sides. It does. We're on the side of peace.
That's right. India is not neutral. Yes. I think that's the
the exact word.
Yeah, that's the point that he made. We are not neutral. We support all efforts as far as peace is concerned. Globally, yes. And this is what President Putin also said. Of course, he did bring out that, the Americans have been involved. He did point out to the American effort, and he said that we are also willing to get towards peace. And then both the sides mentioned about bilateral ties also. But I think the cherry on the pudding, if I can say, is what everyone was really looking for was Ukraine. That means both of them did discuss Ukraine when they met for 3 hours plus last evening. So that was an important element of their discussions.
Okay.
And of course, along with that, the bilateral issues.
Let me get the other side. Tatiana Kukareva, what do you make of this initial flurry of opening remarks focused on Ukraine but non-judgmental?
Right, Rahul. Well, actually not surprising, that both leaders spoke about Ukraine, and it just highlights how frank the conversation is between them. Vladimir Putin just pointing out that it was a very frank discussion. It was an in-depth discussion that also all of the details of the ongoing negotiations with the American side, which we keep forgetting, on the with on all of the big announcements and big tweets coming in from President Trump, we keep forgetting that this conversation is ongoing. There is a process that has been started. Nobody, at least nobody in Moscow, I believe, expected it to be fast. Nobody expected it to happen overnight. That's a huge crisis that we're dealing with. And that Prime Minister Modi has gotten all of the details from President Putin, but also, just checking in all of the boxes, the new areas of cooperation. We were all listening closely, obviously, that from high-tech aviation, so that means that there's going to be extensive discussions on those jets, but also AI, something that we hadn't discussed, I believe, on these panels, and that's something that India has a lot to offer, and Russia as well. So that's very interesting in terms of future cooperation between the two countries.
Yes, so the commitment you're saying to broad basing this relationship coming through there. Very interestingly, and this is something that President Putin referred to, he thanked Prime Minister Modi for the efforts that Prime Minister Modi is making, perhaps behind the scenes, we don't know, in trying to narrow the divergence over Ukraine, Doctor. Significant.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it was very well crafted disclosure after the meeting. I think we pressed all the right buttons, including the button that would send Trump into convulsions looking at these images. But may I, with my layman knowledge, disagree a little when we say, or when Prime Minister Modi says that we've not been neutral. No, we have been neutral. Because in this war, you are either with Russia or you are against it. I have always been against Russia invading Ukraine for the simple reason that it is a country's inalienable right to forge methods or mechanisms to defend itself. Now, Russia has had 3 erstwhile Soviet Union states that are part of NATO alliance. You have Poland, eastern countries part of NATO alliance. Russia cannot attack them. The only reason Russia attacked Ukraine was it was not part of NATO. So it could have been part of NATO earlier. Now, obviously, if I'm not neutral, I would be against Russia invading a foreign country when that foreign country, like other neighboring countries of Soviet Union, of Russia, have taken that same step. So India has been neutral. But as I said, who is not neutral and who is not hypocritical? You look at the Western Europe, who's waxing eloquent about siding with Ukraine against Russia. They've been buying more Russian energy and oil than we have been. They've even, saved themselves, exempted themselves from the secondary sanctions that are unfortunately going to hurt us, because now when Russian oil majors are put under sanctions, that hurts us.
Tatiana Kukareva, quick one on what Dr. Ranganathan said, and I want to bring in Major Jolly.
Well, Rahul, I'll have to remind the doctor that the relationships with Ukraine has been a very special issue, and I wouldn't possibly compare it to the other neighboring countries that are part of NATO, for a very simple reason, and this is such a complex issue, obviously more complex for us because we have been living side by side with this country that has chosen to and let's not forget, back in 2014, when all of this ugliness was unfolding, when American officials just suddenly appeared out there on Maidan, giving out cookies like Victoria Nuland, and let's not forget Hunter Biden to begin with. That's such a complex issue. It was never about just our neighbors being there and suddenly there is an attack. No, it's been building up for quite a while, and there was very obvious
It's a
influence
sovereignty issue, deeply linked to Russian sovereignty also, I suppose, and therefore you had a cat and mouse game. In fact, Trump has laid the blame squarely on Biden's door and the West. But yes, very quickly.
No, I agree. It's much more nuanced, as the previous panelist rightly said. But let me give you an analogy. We have a border dispute, a territory dispute with Pakistan. Now, tomorrow Pakistan enters into an alliance, a NATO-like alliance, which it has with Saudi Arabia or something. Would we invade Pakistan?
But you know, it has in the past tried to, of course, it had, of course, an alliance during the Cold War era, CENTO and so forth, in CETO. But the point was not that. The point here is that Russia thought that its own security interests were being impinged through a feint, and that was something that they objected to. Now, look, we can always sort of stand in moral judgment of someone's commitment to finally pulling the trigger, but a lot could be then said about the way India sort of reacted after Operation Sindoor. Let's just park that aside, because I think what India is trying to say is that, look, it's not our war. That is what we had originally said. It's not our war to fight or to lose. It has really been foisted upon the world. Now, you can pick your sides and you can say that it was because of Ukraine or it was because of Russia, but what are we on the side of? We're on the side of peace. We'd like both Russia and Ukraine and the West, etc., to narrow the differences and perhaps evolve some sort of an everlasting peace. I think that's what the larger message is. I just want to very quickly, I don't want to cut you off. I just very quickly want to bring in Ross Feingold from the American perspective on this. I think if you were to look at this conversation, Mr. Feingold, and these exchanges, substantive agreement there that peace is something worthy of aspiring to. I think both sides have recognized that. That should give heart to anyone who's invested in peace in Europe.
Yeah, that's certainly the case, but clearly there's different views on how to achieve that. The Europeans would prefer that Ukraine recovers its lost territory. An increasing number of people in the United States and obviously President Trump feel that's unrealistic and it will only prolong the war. And that's why President Trump's peace plan basically would require Ukraine to acknowledge that some of its territory is occupied by Russia. But bringing this back to President Trump, we know his focus is on commerce and trade, and he's shown this willingness throughout his term in office this year, since he came back into the presidency, to be involved in conflict resolution. And I think that surprised a lot of people around the world. He does get criticism for that, but I think he also deserves some credit for that. So although a lot of the conversation about Putin's visit to India is about differences that it shows between India and the United States, again, I think President Trump really does want to restore an extremely close and positive relationship with India, and whatever remarks he might make today on his social media account, I don't think that changes the trajectory, which is that President Trump does seek a close relationship with India.
Right. I mean, look, I think those are non sequiturs there. And I agree with you. I want to bring back Tatiana Kukureva as well as Major Jolly. Major Jolly, first to you, because you haven't had an opportunity to express your point of view. Where do you come in after you heard the opening remarks?
Hi, thanks, Rahul. So, while I think the world as well as India wants to bring better peace, but these are very critical moments for India as a country, as we place ourselves as one of the stakeholders in multipolar world. While we should always propagate peace, but it is time there's no harm in taking stand, actually. You have a friend who's been with you for decades, your entire defense equipment comes, energy is coming from there. The kind of leverage that Russia gives to India in terms of transfer of tech, support, I mean, it's unmatched to anybody else in the world. So why not say, yes, while we want peace, but we do stand this side. And just to, a little quote on what Dr. Anand was saying about if Pakistan was a much weaker state and India was much bigger, and they carried out terrorist attack, we would have conquered them long back ago. It is just that the balance of power is not such that we can easily go and just take away the territory. So yes, I mean it's a Russia-Ukraine is a very complicated state, and as Tatiana said, it's been going on for decades now.
Yeah.
So for us to try and offer a solution, it will be I don't know, reaching out way ahead of what our understanding is.
Yeah.
But I would still say that in favor of leveraging, in favor of being supporting of our decades-long friends, we should say that we stand with Russia.
Well, at least optically, Doctor. Yeah. No, go ahead.
As I said, I mean, I don't mind India's position at all. I mean, in fact, you could say in one sense it's walking on eggshells, but it's being supportive of its friend Russia. At the same time, it doesn't want to antagonize the rest of the West because we do a lot of trade with them.
Yes.
But the fact of the matter is, Ukraine did not attack Russia. As the Major said, if Pakistan were to attack us, then we would certainly conquer them. That analogy doesn't hold. But at the same time, let me also say this. It is the prerogative of any country to find ways and mechanisms to defend itself. Now, of course, Ukraine may feel threatened with a much larger neighbor, as many other countries did. All it's done is it's taken its inalienable right to defend itself, and Russia also, as I said, I mean, I accept there's a nuanced position. I mean, there is territory of Ukraine that Russia thinks it is ours, just like Pakistani territory that actually is ours. But the fact of the matter is, we are not neutral out here. We could have gone one step further and explained the pros and cons of this battle. For example, we could have said, look, I think this part of what Russia has done is fine. This part of what Ukraine has done is fine. For simply saying that we want peace is, I'm afraid, neither here nor there, but then I'm not a diplomat.
Maybe that's why Prime Minister gave Mr. Putin the Bhagavad Gita. Maybe there's that to it too. But just a minute, I'll just take a very short break. I want to come back because I want to pick up from where we left off with Mr. Sajjanhar and Ms. Kukreva on whether there is also, of course, a little bit of pressure on Moscow or a realization that it also needs to diversify its own interests. So we'll come back to that question just after this short break. Stay with us, viewers.
It's a summit that will redefine geopolitics.
Two leaders, one visit, every moment counts.
Every deal, every word, every step decoded.
Your front row seat to a headline-making trip from Moscow
to New Delhi. We've got it covered.
Diplomatic power unfolds this week.
Putin, Modi, power play.
Exclusive, exhaustive, extensive.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
But I also want to go across to Akanksha Swaroop, who's there at the Bharat Mandapam. Later this afternoon, both the President and the Prime Minister will be convening the India-Russia CEOs Roundtable, the Business Forum. And as I outlined a moment ago, one of the things that they want to expand is on trade and cooperation, on expanding the breadth of the trade relationship. Right now, a lot of it is Russian gas and oil, and the trade deficit, like I outlined a moment ago, is the second highest that India has with any country after China. How do they plan to go about it?
Right. So very interestingly, we are at the Bharat Mandapam where the CEO roundtable will be happening. And yesterday was the India-Russia Business Forum. Interestingly, Zaka, the Commerce Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal, was very quick in pointing out that the trade has been flourishing between India and Russia. Nonetheless, it remains skewed, and that trade basket has to be diversified. So even though India happens to be one of the largest buyers of Russian defense, also was was one of the largest buyers of Russian oil, and that, of course, has been going down. So it is now going to shift focus over to trade. What is that going to encompass? You're looking at pharmaceuticals, you're looking at fertilizers, agricultural products. Both the sides are looking towards working down, say, the tariff barriers. The Commerce Minister also highlighted that compliance, tariff, and there was a lot of red tapeism involved, which the Modi government has sort of worked towards to reduce, and that will also give a headway in sort of strengthening and deepening this partnership. All of the Russian delegation currently is comprising of, say, corporate honchos from these sectors, which I just enlisted, many of them also belonging to the energy sector, many of them belonging to big machinery sectors as well. The other aspect that we are looking towards is increasing labor mobility. Remember, Russia has lost out close to 1 million Russians on the front line alone, and there is a massive labor shortage. India is looking towards replenishing that shortage by providing Indian labor. At the same time, nuclear cooperation is going to be another major area of sort of concern and cooperation. But it would be interesting to see how we take this entire bilateral trade partnership forward. We've been talking to, say, FICCI also, members of FICCI. They've all been talking about how this particular forum is only going to help us take this forward.
Okay, we'll be back in touch with our reporters through the course of the morning. It's going to be a busy and heavy morning for our reporters as well, so I hope you've got your fuel for the day planned on, and you will get an announcement of this later in the afternoon. Is on small modular reactors. Russia's state-run nuclear corporation, Rosatom, has now announced that it has delivered the first consignment of nuclear fuel for the initial loading of Unit 3 at the Kudankulam nuclear power plant in Tamil Nadu. The fuel delivery marks a key milestone in the ongoing construction and commissioning of the plant's next reactor unit. There are 6 units that the Russian side was supposed to build. 2 of them are operational now. This is the nuclear fuel that's been now confirmed. For the 3rd unit, there are now units 4, 5 and 6 that need to be commissioned as well. So this is something that you will hear about when those intergovernmental agreements are signed later this afternoon. Here in our studios, Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey, security analyst, is there. We have Abhijit Iyer Mitra, senior fellow from the Institute for Peace and Conflict Studies, and Anand Raghunathan, professor and familiar face here on CNN News 18. Welcome, gentlemen. General Pandey, what is at stake, as you see it, as President Putin and Prime Minister Modi begin the 23rd Annual India-Russia Summit at a time when there seems to be this geopolitical rebalancing going on?
Yeah, I think firstly, a lot of people are putting focus on defense deal and trade facet, how to overcome, bridge the gap of trade gap and all, but I look at it in this whole shifting of geopolitics in not only in the region, but more importantly in the world stage. I think a multipolarity is now getting established by this visit of the 10th visit of Putin in since the time he has been in the power. I think it's very, very important and significant, and I think for both, not only for Putin, a lot of people are saying it's important for Putin to showcase to his own population, his own people and to the world that he is not isolated in this whole context, which is war which is happening with Ukraine, while Europeans and the Americans may be getting after him by sanctioning and all. But yet he has got places to visit. He's already been visiting in last couple of months. He's been out of his country and visited a number of states, and therefore I think it's very important for him domestically, but I think it's also very important for us. While we may not talk of it more often, that there is a leverage. We are an emerging power. If you look at this articles coming out by diplomats against the visit of Putin in our country and the discussion which is happening, why is he visiting our country, puts India back into the focus. So while number of people may feel that it is not so good, but I look at it that it's very important that India's relevance is being recognized in the world. And then my view is that this is a very great opportunity for Prime Minister Modi to come out slightly more higher when he may talk and make a mention about Ukraine-Russia war, away from the symbolism of sanctions and tariff and stuff like that, which has been tried to be imposed by the West on the rest of the world, actually, whosoever is taking energy correct from Russia. I think the moment he makes a statement on Ukraine-Russia war, because today this is we are the only country who can talk to both Ukrainians and Russians. And I think That is very important, and you listen to the statement.
India's largest airline, Indigo, is in a tailspin, viewers. Big disruptions by Indigo. Absolute apathy with regards to passenger and consumer interest. Indigo has cancelled all Delhi departures till midnight. Can you believe it? Yesterday, 550 flights of Indigo were cancelled, inconveniencing thousands and thousands of travellers. Today, also in Chennai, flights grounded till 6 p.m. And over the last 48 hours, more than 1,300 flights have been scrapped. In 48 hours, over 600 viewers. Turmoil has erased nearly 16,000 crores in market value, with the Indigo stock sliding 6%. And they only have themselves to blame. They were supposed to conform to new directives from the government that had been relaxed not once but twice for them. But they failed to do so. And since November, viewers, they've got into rostering problems because the new guidelines mandated more rest time for pilots, which meant that India's largest airline, if it was conscious of its commitment towards serving the customer, would have taken on board more pilots, but it did not do so, keeping profits and margins in mind. It refused to do so. So it has landed in this mess when it has hit a wall. And frankly, viewers, the Civil Aviation Ministry, the government at the center, has been blithely complicit. One has to say this because it hasn't stepped in at the right times. It gave too much rein to Indigo without accountability. Let's listen in to the woes of passengers who are the hardest hit today on the ground. Here are some ground reports of the chaos, and you can see it on your screens, viewers, from different airports.
As the crisis over Indigo flights being cancelled persists, in today's day there are more than 600 flights across the entire country which seem to be cancelled, of which 104 are from Mumbai. These are to and fro flights from Mumbai. Right here outside the T1 airport at Mumbai, you see long queues outside the Indigo ticketing center. This is because we see that there are several passengers, thousands of them, who've been stranded at the airport. In fact, as a part of the information that comes in, it has also been informed that the Indigo has informed that it would curtail flights from December 8 onwards to minimize flight disruption and delays, and cancellations would continue. Of course, a statement has been issued for passengers stating that they have to they should bear with some inconvenience, particularly when it comes to when it comes to this very crisis that Indigo is facing, because the disruption is expected to continue for the next couple of days. Amidst all of this, of course, DGC has issued instruction that when it comes to the flight tickets for other aircrafts, tickets should not be shot up. But the passengers we spoke to here have spoken about the fact that they are experiencing and have to purchase air tickets worth rupees 1 lakh to 34,000. 34,000 is the base, going up onwards up to 1 lakh rupees in a domestic flight as well. In fact, all of this comes in as Indigo is flying more than 2,200 flights across the entire country, and because of the changes in the roster system, changes over the schedule of the cabin crew as well as the pilots of the weekend and in all the roster system, is where several of this several staff is not available for Indigo, and which is where this very issue is being faced by Indigo, and this is leading to cascade effect on other airlines as well, because several other airlines are also getting cancelled on the lines, particularly on the lines because these Indigo aircrafts are parked in the parking bay. Tell us, you were travelling by Indigo. What was your flight number, and how long it's been delayed?
5217. It's been indefinitely delayed, and they have refunded the tickets, but no mail, no messages, nothing like that.
Okay.
So yeah.
So for how long have you been waiting here?
I've been waiting here for 2 hours, 3 hours, around 3 hours, yeah.
And where were you flying to?
Bangalore.
How do you see? How will you plan to travel now after this?
I think the train is the best idea because no flight in this country is dependable. So I think train is the way to go ahead.
Okay. And are there more people traveling with you who are facing these issues?
My friends, yeah. Yeah, more people, yeah.
Okay. And most of you all are facing this issue.
Yeah, many of us, like you can see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you all get any communication about the delay or
Nothing
anything?
like that. No mail, no messages, nothing. I think that's what pissed people off.
Okay.
You can just send a mail, that's all.
So बताइए क्या दिक्कत आ रही है आपको?
मैडम मैंने टिकट बुक किया था तो कल मेरे जाने का था, वो टिकट कैंसिल नहीं जा रही, फ्लाइट कैंसिल हो गया। फिर मैंने वाया टिकट दिया, वाया टिकट भी मैं जब आज उसको जाने के लिए आया तो बोलता वो भी कैंसिल हो गया।
Well, big breaking news coming in. Finally, the regulator, the airline regulator is waking up. DGCA is conducting field inspections on Indigo at major airports. Strict action is what the DGCA is having us believe is being taken. This means not only the airline's flight operations are under DGCA's tight watch, but passenger handling arrangements are also being watched by the DGCA. But watching won't do, viewers. Action needs to be taken. Special officers from the DGCA have been deployed to Indigo's operational control centers for this continuous oversight, but it's too late. Oversight is what is not required. Efficiency and restoration of services and perhaps even compensation is the need of the hour. Hopefully the DGCA will slap some penalties on Indigo because this is a crisis of its own making, viewers. Complete disregard for your interest, my interest, the interest of the passenger and the consumer, taken for granted. Anvit there with more details. Anvit, what can you tell us? What is this DGCA inspection really going to achieve when flights are cancelled?
See, Rahul, DGCA has taken some strict actions, and we are being told that DGCA is conducting now field inspections at major airports where Indigo's operations
So what are these? What are these strict? If you don't mind my asking, what are these strict actions that DGCA has taken? Can you elucidate?
See, dedicated officers have been deployed in the operational centers of Indigo, and they are continuously monitoring as to how Indigo operates, not only flight operations, but also how their passenger handling and communication systems work. They have been told to communicate the cancellations and delays much before time. Like only after this direction, the airline had also come out with a list, and now they are updating list on social media as to which airlines and which flights exactly are delayed or are cancelled. Previously, there was a lot of chaos among passengers. There was no communication from the airline. DGCA has stepped in to say also that all of Indigo's real-time operations are now under its watch, and they have also said that this means that not only airlines flight operations but also DGCA is keeping a tight watch on the passenger handling arrangements also. Other than this, we know that yesterday there was also a detailed ministry representation.
Let me just quickly bring in Yesha on this point. Yesha Kotak, live from Mumbai. What about stranded passengers? How are they being looked after by Indigo? Are they just getting cups of coffee and being told to wait around, or is there something more substantive coming from the airline?
Rahul, when I'll show you the visuals right here from outside the Mumbai airport's T1. This is a domestic terminal of the Mumbai airport, and like you see, as of now, when we spoke to several passengers here, some of them have been stranded inside. Of course, like you've said that there's no provision that's being made really for the passengers right here. Right outside this Indigo's counter is where you see huge queue. Several of the passengers who we spoke to said that there was absolutely no communication that was being passed on to them. Apart from that, also some passengers who were already inside, their baggage was taken, but later they were informed that the flights are cancelled. So, in fact, there's a lot of chaos right here at this very airport. And
so you're basically saying, Yesha, that there has been actually no facilitation for the passenger, and that's really the problem, isn't it, viewers? It's not just the fact that you've been taken for granted, but you've been taken for granted twice over, because you have complete control over the sector. 70% you own the skies, basically. Where will the passenger go? That's fundamentally what it is. And I want to go straight across to Neetu, who sent us this ground report from outside, I think, Kochi Airport, if I'm not mistaken, or Trivandrum. Let's go straight across to her.
We are outside the Thiruvananthapuram airport here. We can see that several passengers are here who are stuck and stranded here because the Indigo flights have been cancelled, or there has been several delays. At least 2 flights of arrivals and 2 of departure has been cancelled. This family has to go to Raipur, but their flights have been cancelled, and they are saying that there is no alternate arrangements also so far. क्या हुआ था, कब था आपका फ्लाइट?
अभी 1 बजे का था हमारा फ्लाइट, वो कैंसिल हो गया, उसका कोई मैसेज भी नहीं आया हमको। और अभी वो बोल रहे हैं कि सर अभी जस्ट हुआ है कैंसिल, मैसेज भेजने का भी हमारे पास टाइम नहीं है। और फिर बेंगलोर वाली फ़्लाइट भी कैंसिल हो गई, कल के लिए कुछ अल्टरनेट भी नहीं बता रहे हैं।
आप यहाँ पर स्टक है क्या? आप कोई ट्रिप के लिए आया था या?
ट्रिप के लिए आए थे, हमारा आज आखिरी डेट है ट्रिप का, और हमको आज रायपुर पहुँचना है, परसों से ऑफिस है हमारा।
Before 1 hour we got a cancellation mail that our flight got cancelled and we have to go to again back to Hyderabad. And when we went to the counter and asked them, they were not giving any response only. I did not face this kind of problem with other airlines, for example Air India, Air Vistara.
Actually, Sabrimala devotees who had come in from Hyderabad to have the darshan at Sabrimala temple, and then a family from Raipur who came for vacation to Kerala, they had to go back tomorrow and get back to school. The child has to get back to school and they have to go back to office, but they are stuck here with no idea as to what to do. How are they going to get back to their home? So this is the situation that we are witnessing in Thiruvananthapuram.
Must be seeing the mess of Indigo. What would you want to say about that? Is it a case of monopoly?
No, I think it's, you can't talk about monopoly because anybody, so you can start an airline tomorrow. Anyone can start an airline if they have the money. The problem is that they have been given time. The DGCA didn't suddenly spring this upon them overnight. They gave, I believe, 2 years warning to the airlines. This is going to be the new system that will be followed. Now, when you have 2 years time to prepare and you don't prepare, whose fault is it?
Were you planning to go to Thiruvananthapuram on Air India?
I am going to Thiruvananthapuram on Air India.
3 दिनों से लगातार ये समस्या चल रही है। 500 से ज्यादा फ्लाइट्स कैंसिल हुई हैं या बहुत देर तक डिले हुई। हवाई यात्रा क्यों करता है कोई आम नागरिक? कम समय में पहुंचना चाहता है। अगर डिले हो गया तो उसका तो मतलब ही नहीं रहा। फिर मीटिंग फिक्स होती है उसकी डेस्टिनेशन, कुछ कार्य करना होता है, वो भी सफर करता है। तो मैंने आज ये मुद्दा उठाया सदन में, ये भी कहा कि सैटरडे संडे चूंकि नहीं होती है बैठ के सदन की, इसलिए ज्यादातर सांसद क्षेत्रों में जाते हैं, विकास की बातें करते हैं, काम करते हैं। शादी का सीजन चल रहा है, लोग शादियों में जाना चाहते हैं, पर इंडिगो की जिस तरीके से फ्लाइट निरस्त हो रही है उससे उनको सीधा प्रभाव पड़ रहा है। हाँ, पर एक चीज जरूर मैं कह दूं, ये गलत नीति मोदी सरकार की है जो मोनोपोली हर जगह ला रही है।
It is a matter of serious concern. Passengers are affected. Hundreds of flights have gotten cancelled. Even yesterday, the Minister of Civil Aviation has held detailed meetings with the Indigo leadership. We are very confident that there will be a resolution to this impasse. My request, not only as a user of airline services, but as a common citizen, is for the authorities as well as the senior leadership of Indigo to immediately address the concerns of the passengers and make sure that the passengers are taken care of and their interests does not suffer.
Thanks a lot for staying with us. I'm Shivani Gupta. We begin with a quick check of the headlines, and of course we'll get you more on what's happening on ground and what is the opinion around the country over what has transpired with the Indigo.
союзник России заявил Нарендра Моди в преддверии саммита на высоком уровне, между странами называется простой повестки времени. Визит Владимира Путина на государственном уровне призван подтвердить договоренности и вывести отношения на качественно новый уровень.
श्रीमान अंतर सेना सम्मान गार्ड निरीक्षण के लिए हाजिर।
ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरे नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान। ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरे नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम।
वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे। पर दुखे उपकार करे तोए मन अभिमान नाणे रे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे। सकळ लोक मां सहुने वंदे निंदा न करे केनी रे। वाच काछ मन निश्चल राखे धन धन जननी तेनी रे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे। समदृष्टि ने तृष्णा त्यागी परस्त्री जेने
agreed with his constitution.
Yeah, I think what we're dealing here is India has had to deal with Putin as well as Rasputin. And by Rasputin, I mean Trump, not just symbolically with all the revelations stumbling out of his cupboard. The fact of the matter is that it's actually, ironically, Trump that has shown us the way. It seems horrible, the wordplay, but, you know, transactional. Every relationship from now on of every nation is no longer who's a friend, who's a trusted friend, or, I mean, Russia is transactional with us. You know, we've purchased $130 billion worth of Russian oil in the last 3 years. You know, for us, yes, our trade is not as high as it was. Okay. But the fact of the matter is, every nation is transactional.
Let me bring in Tatiana Kukareva on that point. Tatiana Kukareva, yes, the optics are great, but will they translate into outcomes which will also, of course,
priced for the other producers? They go up.
Yeah.
So this is in a sense the general kind of, it displays the whole situation from a very different perspective. I believe it was actually Minister Puri who first said that, you know, India essentially bail out the whole world by taking...
Look, that is well understood, and that's why I said it also obliged itself, no doubt. But fundamentally, I think we're at that point now in our relationship where we need it to become more broad-based and fairer, I think, between the two partners. Do you think that's actually going to happen? Are we going to see that transition, that pivot?
It's interesting that you would say fairer, because I believe that this has been a very fair relationship, you know, to begin with, between Prime Minister Modi and President Putin. It is very kind of at face value for both of them, you know, because you said that, you know, it's been said on the panel that Trump has shown us the way in a way. What he...
Of those opening comments, very important, will be the first words that we will hear from both these leaders as they meet. Let's listen in.
जब आपने कार्यभार संभाला और भारत की आपकी यात्रा पहली हुई, उसको आज 25 साल हो गए, और उस पहली यात्रा में ही स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप की एक मजबूत नींव रखी गई थी.
Ваше Превосходительство, дорогой друг, я очень рад этой возможности встретиться с вами и поприветствовать вас и вашу делегацию в нашей стране. Начиная с вчерашнего дня, представители вашей делегации провели очень много мероприятий, заседаний с своими коллегами с индийской стороны. И мы видим очень много результатов и соглашений по окончанию нашего саммита ежегодного. Поэтому я уверен, что наш саммит станет весьма успешным. И ваш нынешний визит, уважаемый господин президент, имеет по-настоящему историческое значение. Ровно 25 лет назад вы впервые посетили Индию в качестве президента Российской Федерации и заложили основы нашего стратегического партнерства.
मेरे लिए पर्सनली भी खुशी की बात है कि